the returning officer for the nomination of presidential candidates, declare Nandala Mafabi James Nathan a duly nominated candidate.
The last week was marked by debate about the non-appearance of a female presidential candidate on the January 2026 presidential ballot, the first time since the return of multi-party dispensation 20 years ago. This development opened the long-standing debate of Uganda's long journey to women's empowerment.
Politics is difficult. We will get there. We will get there. We do have those strong women already who are in politics, who are vocal, who are giving their opinions, who are talking loudly in parliament when they believe in something. And so we've made progress. We've risen where appointments are made, like vice president is female.
That should ring a bell. And we should start questioning ourselves as a country, why and what is stopping these women. There are subtle issues that we don't want to talk about. Issues of commercialization of politics, issues of sexual violence, issues of violence in general.
In pre-colonial Africa, a handful of women such as the queens and the queen's sisters wielded certain powers across different kingdoms and chiefdoms. It was these small polities that were woven into protectorates and eventually granted self-rule.
Uganda will play a very active role in the pursuit of that goal.
In Uganda, post-colonial governments followed emerging trends. The enrollment of girls in schools was encouraged by the governments, although communities took a while to widely embrace the idea, as many preferred to educate the boys. In governance, women representation started in the first parliament, Legico, in 1954, although they were white. African women representation came in 1956 in Pumla Chisosonkole. She even went on to represent Ugandan women at the international scene and became president of the International Council of Women between 1959 and 1962, and the first Ugandan women representative at the UN General Assembly from 1963 to 1964. Chisosonkole was followed in Legico by Florence Alice Lubega as the first woman MP in Uganda's first post-independent parliament in May 1962. The successive post-independent cabinets were largely men. As political instability swept the country, 1979 marked a new dawn in global women empowerment with a convention on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, billed as the International Bill of Rights for Women. Uganda ratified the treaty that requires signatory states to eliminate all forms of discrimination against women in 1985.
Member of High Command, Sarim Sare Rufu, Major General.
The National Resistance Army shot to power in 1986. There are no women in the rebel group's top hierarchy, although several women driven to the precipice by the Ugandan National Liberation Army, such as Olivia Zizinga, Joyce Selwaniko, Gertrude Njuba, Sarah Navuga, China Keitesi, among others, played key roles as combatants and espionage. In attempt to win over appeal locally and internationally, the NRA embarked on wide-ranging reforms, including forming a broad-based government, including opposition politicians in key ministerial positions, and women including Njuba and Victoria Sechitoleko. In 1988, Joyce Mpanga, who died in November 2023, was appointed the First Minister for Women Affairs. In 1989, the NRM passed a resolution to allocate at least 1/3 of seats for women at all levels from local councils to the parliament. In 1994, Specioza Kaziwe became vice president, the first on the continent, and became the beacon of progressive policies. Entrepreneur Dr. Maggie Chigozi said the country has come from far.
The women have been second-class citizens, if I can call it that. We don't have the opportunities that the men have. You have child marriages, you have, rapes of children, early pregnancy, you have female genital mutilation. There are so many things that are done to women. Opportunities were not there. in jobs, and when you get the same job, you are paid less.
The Justice Benjamin Odoch Constitutional Commission that aggregated public views in the making of the 1995 Constitution recommended special provisions for the protection and promotion of the rights of women, the family, children, and handicapped or disabled. Quote unquote, women have historically been subordinate to men in Ugandan society. Since 1986, gender has become an important base for division and organization as women, encouraged by the government, have begun to address their relative lack of strength. Among other issues, women have expressed immense concern about their right to own and inherit property and to have custody of their children. End of quote. The report reads in part, ultimately, the Constitution, promulgated on October 8, 1995, cemented the government's commitment to women by recognizing all Ugandans as equal and prohibiting any form of discrimination based on gender or sex. Article 32 of the 1995 Constitution lists women among the marginalized groups based on gender that require affirmative action to correct historical and traditional injustices that have been positioned them in. Article 33 states that women in Uganda shall be accorded full and equal dignity of the person with men and mandates the state to provide facilities and opportunities necessary to enhance the welfare of women to enable them realize their full potential and advancement. 30 years later, there is consensus that Uganda has made commendable progress in the cause of women's empowerment and gender equality, as women currently occupy key positions of Vice President, Speaker of Parliament and Prime Minister, and are represented at all levels of leadership, both in the public and private sectors.
I sit on the Makerere Endowment Fund, and 52% of our graduates are women. Yeah, so well done, me and all the other ladies and gentlemen, the nice gentlemen who also agreed that, women should be educated. The CEOs of some of the biggest banks in Uganda are women. Never banks, finance. That was not a women's section at all. Now it is.
We can talk about so much as a country. And like people said, I think our constitution is really progressive. Our whole chapter talking about freedoms, human rights and freedoms, very elaborate on rights of women and their rights in different aspects, We are seeing a lot of progress in the education sector, more and more girls going to school.
So government put in place, government went ahead to ensure that women are seen in the public sphere. We saw the provision for education, the 1.5 for girls, the 30% for women in all decision-making processes, especially the elective, and somehow that provision has been borrowed by many, even private sector. Now you can't do things, and people will ask you, where are the women? So the 30% has gone ahead to be translated even outside government institutions. So those are mileages that we have made.
In the current parliament, out of the total 556 MPs, 189 are women. The Local Governments Act reserves 1/3 of seats on local government councils for women. A specific woman councillor must be directly elected to represent each ward. The law also mandates that one of the 2 representatives for special interest groups must be female. Carol Kayanja, a programs director at the NGO UCOPAC, and UONET's Ruth Achiro say these gains are a mixed bag of things.
We are still struggling with an issue of how we perceive women and girls. And that informs so many decisions we take as a country, as people that have the obligation, the duty to serve, but also as communities.
We're still dealing with challenges of social norms, negative social norms to women. How many women can still own land, let alone access? We've now moved beyond access. Remember, I said there's mileage we've made. We've made mileage on access. Women access land. A woman can go dig and be given but can she make the decision on the issues, on how that money is utilized?
In public service, a 2023 Human Resources report by the Ministry of Public Service details that although service remains predominantly male at 61%, women only outnumber males in the health sector. Women make up 50% of the permanent secretaries and 40% of all chairpersons of commissions.
We have seen many women getting into leadership, but in terms of the substance of the leadership, how does it translate into the lives of other women? Are these women leaders making decisions that have multiplier effect? Because not every woman can be a leader.
Where do most women invest? The biggest percentage of women are farmers. They invest in agriculture. So if you fail to resolve the land issue, then you've already limited their contribution to national development.
The introduction of free education at the primary and secondary levels is also hailed for bridging the gender gap in education. Girls joining the university are guaranteed an extra 1.5 points to increase the number of women in higher education. Economically, women were granted the right to work and own property. The government has also put in place multiple initiatives specific to women to break barriers to financial independence, even mainstream programs like PDM, while programs like Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program are tailored for own. However, several structural barriers like poverty affect women disproportionately. Currently, women make a big percentage of Ugandans seeking opportunities in Middle East.
And we see even the women who are in politics. Their kind of power, the positions that they will hold, apart from just winning an election, there are other positions that come along with you being in parliament. Those are still dependent on their relationships with the men in power.
By now, we should be very far. We should be seeing more women. If we are going to go by the population, we should be seeing 50 and above representation of women in leadership because we are the majority. But we're still oscillating between 30, 35 at most in all decision-making spaces. That is where 35, 30, 45 at most, maybe in public service in a few areas. So what is that? Negative social norms. We still believe that women, our society still believes that women are not good leaders.
Women's empowerment is not just a goal, but a necessity for Uganda advancement. However, there is general consensus about the lingering biases and gaps that impact women's ability to actively participate economically and generate income and contribute to the economic growth as agents of development.